My name is Jay Parker. I'm the founder of Internet Computer Addiction Services with Dr. Hillary Cash. We've been doing this about 10 years. I've been in the addiction field for 15, and I'm in personal recovery myself. When I think about the computer industry and where we are today in 2008, I liken it very much to the automobile industry of 100 years ago. So think back 100 years. Henry Ford has a desire to make a cheap, available car and put it in every American family. And that was his goal. The same goal that Bill Gates had when he started Microsoft. The same exact goal, 100 years apart. And both men were very visionary. Bill Gates, of course, still is alive and still is visionary. And Henry Ford was very visionary. But as visionary as Henry Ford was 100 years ago, there is no way that he envisioned in 1908 that 40,000 Americans would die a year in his invention. No way did he see airbags, DUI laws, even red lights, freeways, and a whole bunch of other things that we now take for granted. If you look back at the history of the automobile industry, the first reported fatality in the automobile industry was in 1925. It was a little 2-inch blurb in Akron, Ohio newspaper. Now, all these years later, when you buy a new Lexus or a new SUV and they hand you the keys and you drive off that lot, it's implied in our consciousness that you could die in that vehicle. Now, I'm not suggesting that we return to horse and buggy, but it's now in our consciousness that people die in automobiles. Well, Bill Gates created this wonderful industry and created this availability of every person, not in just country, but even worldwide, to have access to the internet and computer. No way did he envision that Sean Wiley, 7 years ago, would be playing EverQuest for 36 straight hours, have a psychotic break, and blow his brains out. He could not envision that. He could not envision predators on a computer. He could not envision marriages blowing up because of infidelity created through a chat room on the computer. There was no way he could have envisioned that. Just like it took 30, 40 years for it to seep into American consciousness that there's a downside to automobiles, it might take just that long for it to seep into the American consciousness that there's a downside to computers. I personally think 20 years from now, we won't be having this dialogue. Just like we don't have a dialogue that people could die in cars. That dialogue doesn't happen anymore. I think that's, just looking at it historically, from a sociological standpoint, between the automobile industry and the computer industry, I think that's about where we are now. I think we're at 1912. You know, maybe 1920. People still didn't see cars in any negative light in 1920. People still see the computer as harmless, as positive, as educational. As a culture, we just don't see it as a downside. Now, it's interesting because the concept of a predator is starting to seep into people's awareness, that a pedophile could get on a computer and find your child. That's about the only awareness that's out there. But it's interesting because the pornography, which now you don't need a credit card to purchase pornography. Pornography is free on a computer, is a much greater risk to kids than the predator, than the pedophile. It's not even close. The infidelity that goes on inside of a marriage that's springboarded and catapulted into a living room or a bedroom through a webcam is far more dangerous than walking in a bar. Much more dangerous. And so there has to be a paradigm shift, an awareness shift, if the country is really going to be able to utilize this marvelous tool in a healthy way. And here in Redmond, where we're located, obviously, Microsoft doesn't want to hear what we have to say. Nintendo doesn't want to hear what we have to say. Just like people might have, the automobile industry didn't want to hear about seatbelts. You go back and look at the research from the 1960s on, they were not at the front of that curve. They were at the back of that curve. Well, why would it be any different? It's economically generated. Why would it be any different? Why Sony doesn't think they have any responsibility for Sean Woolley blowing out his brains because they made EverQuest? Well, it's the same reason that tobacco companies don't think they have any culpability for lung cancer deaths. It's economically driven. But there'll be more awareness as time goes on. And I think anything that brings a consciousness to it, a debate, a conversation, it's all good.